We are here with Ji Su Jung, a well-renowned soloist and amazing percussionist. I am so happy to be here as part of the Vic Firth and Zildjian family. So I'd like to welcome Ji Su Jung.
Hello, Keith, and hello, everyone. I am glad to be joining this great opportunity today, and I am glad to see you all today.
Yay! Tell us, what did we just hear? What was that?
So the video we just heard was the performance from Kevin Putt's Marimba Concerto that I just performed in last February at the Yale University, actually.
Oh, awesome. So I mean, you travel, you do a lot of traveling and you do a lot of playing. Tell me, what's that life like? Like, you are a soloist. Tell me a little bit about that. I wouldn't know that. I don't know much about that.
Yeah, so I think what I do differently or not as a non-job is that I perform with the orchestra. I do as well as giving a solo recitals, but mainly I'm traveling around and playing with different orchestras and just playing concertos.
That's amazing. And I've seen your online performances, the videos online. We have actually, I don't think we've ever met personally, but I know you through your recordings, so I feel like I know you in so many ways. So the thing is about, when you talk about, oh, I go and play with orchestras around, tell me a little bit about that. I mean, like, I think about when I've traveled, especially abroad, and I'm dealing with jet lag. I mean, tell me a little about that. Like, how do you handle that? You get off the plane and it's, 3 a.m. for you, and it's 3 p.m. where you are.
Yeah, well, that's certainly one of the hardest parts to travel aboard. It's just sometimes you forget your time zone and you just have to kind of recall, okay, like I'm in, I'm where right now, which is, minus how many hours from the States and stuff. But I think the keys is just forget about it, forget about where you are, or like forget about where you're coming from, but just really focus on, okay, this is 9 a.m., which means you just have to eat breakfast, no matter what it is, or this is 11 p.m. you have to go to bed, even though that's like still 7 p.m. somewhere else. Especially whenever I'm traveling to Asia, that's completely different story because it's 12-13 hours different. So for that one, you just have to flip your complete pattern. But yeah.
So you just kind of deal with it, and I would imagine, you immediately you deal with it by switching into a new time zone. I'm going to eat dinner. I'm going to go to bed when in the time zone I'm in. But I would imagine there's some amount of excitement. You get off an airplane and you're now going to play a solo concerto. I mean, that's gotta be part of it too, right? I mean,
oh, definitely. I mean, traveling is just one of my favorite things to do to begin with, and I like people in general. So I like meeting new people, visiting new places, but more than anything, I like eating food. So I just get so excited whenever I travel, like certain places. I'm, contacting with the local people, either the orchestra manager or whoever who lives there, ask about, okay, I have to plan the meal plan, like I just have to know what I'm eating for breakfast, lunch, dinner, and to make sure that those, whatever that's famous for that town, I just have to eat it if I can. But that's one of the fun parts to travel around.
Yeah, I can imagine that. And then, we have percussion soloists and marimba soloists. What do you consider yourself, and what do you feel? Is there a difference, and what are those differences, and how is that challenging to you?
Well, I'm a percussionist who is educated to be a percussionist. Therefore, obviously am playing different instruments than just marimba. But um, I'm just my background. If I may just explain a little bit of my background, is
Yeah.
just I started with piano when I was 2, and just smoothly just went for marimba. So
Wow.
2 keyboard instruments, coincidentally, I started when I was very young, and that's kind of where I built my whole myself. I kind of built my muscles, and my blood is filled with melodies and musical line and stuff. So it is definitely my most comfort zone to be with somewhere like has a melody in it. But I love playing other percussion instruments. Of course, I love playing drums, multi percussion. I love playing in orchestra. I'm actually very missing right now too. But um, concert percussionist and marimbist is somewhat different in terms of marimbist. You perform with only marimba. But percussionist, you have obviously a lot of different instruments, a lot of accessories and drums in the percussion. But how I travel with orchestra right now is just to be a considered a marimbist, where I just perform marimba concertos.
Yeah. So you have that keyboard background, that piano background. It's funny because I tell a lot of people when they want to play percussion, I say you have to get that piano background. Is that Do you feel that that's really really important to your life as a percussionist, having that background on piano?
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's one of the most important keys to be a magician in general. Um, I think a lot of times percussionists think that just having great rhythm and time is only important. But I think we also have to think that at the end we're a magician who, plays the music, which is very lyrical part and has the very natural parts that you have to just follow your intuition and ears and everything. So I think playing and studying piano is just very important. I think. I mean, like
Yeah.
you can't say one of the greatest musicians who is out there didn't play piano right now. So I I also agree with you. I think that it's really high point
Yeah.
that young students, young child who is starting music has to come up with some piano background.
Yeah. Yeah. I agree. So let's see. We're going to hear a little bit more of the Putz Concerto. Am I right? Uh,
Yes.
so let's check this out. This is more of the Kevin Putz Concerto for Marimba. That is just that was spectacular. That was wonderful. And from what I understand, when you shared that with us, you said that's one of your favorite moments in that movement, or the whole piece. I'm not sure. You just said it's one of your favorites. Why? Why is that? I I mean, it was just absolutely gorgeous. But I'm curious why that particular moment is so special to you.
Yeah. Well, to start with, I'm a huge romantic person. I mean, like, I just love everything that it's about, like Brahms or Rachmaninoff, or just like, I love music in general, and I just love melodies. So this second movement is like very, very lyrical, but also very. It's some kind of like insulated. So I have this part of myself loving playing marimba is just because I can express myself in a different language, and I'm sometimes sometimes you can't really express with your words whatever you feel, whatever you want to say. But marimba is just kind of the other way for me to express myself, but more in a more specific and deeper way. So this movement just really allows me to speak my own language and just deliver what's deep in my heart to just everyone in the concert hall, which just brings me a huge thrill and joy all the time.
Yeah, I mean, music is a form of communication, and when the music matches what you want to say, it's you're connecting with your audience.
Absolutely. I think that it's just most powerful language that you can have.
Yeah.
And the funny thing is, I mean, English is not my first language. So the language part is very sensitive. In a way, it's a little different to me because with music, you don't have to speak the language, like the literal language, because everybody understands whatever you play. And if I go to Germany, if I perform in China, if I perform here, even though I don't speak one word, everybody will feel the same thing,
Right.
which is the most magical thing, I think.
Yeah, musical is the universal language,
Definitely.
and that's exactly, it's a language, it's a communication, and it is universal. It is special among all languages. Absolutely. Tell me, you also play solo recitals and concertos. Tell me a little bit about the difference between preparing for a solo recital and playing a concerto with an orchestra. What are the differences in your mind?
Yeah. Well, but I would say the biggest difference is that, well, first of all, I love playing both of them. I love playing solo recital. I love playing absolutely on the stage with orchestra. But if I have to talk about the huge difference is just, well, I think that playing concerto music is just extended version of playing chamber music, and I love playing chamber music as well. And it just brings me another joy. It's a different types of joy that I will feel just me being alone on the stage as a recital player, because there are people to connect, people to communicate, and because I love people as well, like I like to be connecting with people on the stage too. So it's just very different in terms of that way, in terms of how you're connecting with one another, or you just have the one only spotlight on yourself, which is very cool too. But you don't have that joy that you will find by playing with another people on the stage.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, if you're a social person, chamber music is communicating a language of music with others.
Definitely. It's so fun. It's so much fun just connecting with people.
Yeah. Do you sometimes feel lonely when you're playing a solo recital? Do you feel a little like, oh, it's just me out here?
Well, sometimes, which I don't think I don't feel lonely, but I realize it when I go back to a stage with orchestra. I realize that wow, I didn't feel that last time when I did a solo recital, but I feel so comfortable.
Yeah. It's like while you're playing solo, everything's great, and then you go back and you're kind of like, it's kind of nice to have others.
Exactly.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Okay, so we're going to hear a little bit more of the Kevin Putz concerto now, and so let's hear this one. Again, absolutely beautiful. Now that one was just in your house. You just recorded that in your house, which I realized after it started. I said, "Oh, that's right. We had talked about doing that." Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
You know,
it's right here.
and what's interesting is you mentioned that you're a romantic, and if you don't mind, indulging me, the first time I heard you play Land, which is on YouTube video, and I was so taken aback by that recording. I was so touched by that recording, and I think that may come from, it's a very romantic piece,
Right.
and I'm just curious if, I would assume that's why these things are very um, prominent in your playing, the romantic end of that. Tell us a little bit about that recording, if you don't mind, the Land.
Yeah, sure. Well, that's one of my favorite pieces that I performed, and that it's on our Big Fourth videos. Um, I think you're really right that because I have such a romantic heart, I just feel very connected, and it's the same way that I play the second movement of Putz Concerto. I just feel like speaking my own language, and I feel very very comfortable. I just feel like it's like when you're trying to get dressed, and sometimes you feel like, oh, this is not my clothes. It doesn't feel right. But this kind of music where it has just like the very strong melody line, which is so beautiful, and just you can just connect immediately. That just immediately feels like, oh wow, I wrote my own clothes. That is fitting perfectly. Um, so I think that is probably the same way I treat it, or how I feel when I play Len as well. That just really feels like it's right thing to do.
Yeah, it feels right to you. It resonates with you, no pun intended, and it's just that is your personality, and
Mhm.
that's probably why myself and many people out there respond so well to that recording. And another thing um, that I notice with your playing is the tone quality that you get out of the instrument. I mean, I don't hear that harsh, that brittle sound ever. And anything you've ever played that I've seen, the tone quality, you know, is so beautiful. And it's interesting because, we talk about percussionists, and you mentioned time and rhythm is very important. And, but we rarely talk about tone. Can you tell me a little bit about what what is it about your sound that is so I mean, what do you do to develop that sound? What did you do? What is your approach to it? What are your thoughts about it?
Yeah. Well, I think even though we're playing the very percussive instrument,
Right.
literally we're hitting the instruments. I think that this is just one of the precious instruments that you can have. First of all, it's just very natural wood. It's just fully made out wood, besides the resonators, obviously. But the way you can resonate that instrument in the best way is to treat it as respectful as it is. So I think about my instrument as the same way as how violins treat their $1 million instruments.
Right.
And it's not about the price or anything, but just really how you appreciate your own instrument.
Right.
And I think this is the same way how you respect your own self as a musician. So I just think that this is one of the precious and spiritual instrument, and that especially because I feel very connected with the instrument. It's almost kind of like I'm thinking this instrument as my extended version of myself sometimes. So I think the sound quality is just really, really just very precious to think, whether you're a percussionist or not. But I don't think that there is any difference because you're a percussionist. You should not worry about sound quality.
Yeah. It's so interesting you mentioned violin. And, when you think of a violinist, the very first thing they learn is to pull the bow across the string and get a tone quality.
Mm-hmm.
But percussionists, we don't start talking about tone quality typically for years. We get given a pad and a pair of sticks, and it's interesting that we don't have that advantage of tone quality early on like a violinist does.
No, absolutely. I mean, I think because also we have so many instruments. It's not that we have one instrument to master. We have really hard job, right? We have to be mastered as timpanist, drum player, and orchestra players, and now we have to play marimba and all that stuff. So I think we just have harder jobs in some way because we have so many instruments to be mastered. But I think that it just applies to everything, that how I apply it to marimba. Like I think about timpani playing, it's just really important how to have that really beautiful sound. And same thing as snare drum playing. You have to have beautiful sound to play snare drum, right? And I mean, you can speak for me too. Playing cymbal is the most hardest thing in the world. To play the beautiful crash cymbal or suspended cymbal sound is just one of the hardest things to do in the world. So, like, how could you not differentiate yourself from others when you can differentiate yourself?
Yeah. Did you start? Yeah, I know you started with piano, but I'm curious. Did you start with a pair of sticks and a pad, a rubber pad?
Well, this is kind of funny because I didn't know that there is a pad exist until I was 14.
How is that? Were you playing on a drum, or were you still playing piano?
I just started with. I mean, the whole time early life. What I'm talking about is between 2 to 13, 12. I didn't even not know that I had to play different instruments than marimba if I want to be a percussionist. So the whole time I just played piano and marimba, and actually I studied violin and flute for a little bit. So violin, I wanted to do it because that was my one of the favorite instruments, and flute my mom told me that I had to do it to understand how to breathe when I play marimba. So that was a big part to understand breathing while I'm playing any instruments. So yeah, I first time I discovered that there was a pad exists for me to practice was probably when I was 13 and 14 when I had to get ready for high school because I went to our high school in Korea. So yeah, that was a bit of a shock for me.
That's amazing. Were your parents musicians or?
Well, I grew up in such a musical family, but none of my family members. So my parents are not musician at all, but they are one of the people who just admires music the most. I
We have a train.
I have a big train station right here.
Obviously.
Obviously, I'm sorry about that. Um,
It was
but
good timing. They're musicians, and here's the sound of a train.
yep, I'm surrounded by sound all the time, even the siren sound. But I think, well, my parents treat me as just a very a um, a smart musical kid that she can raise too. So my alarm call when I was waking up the whole time when I was elementary school and middle school, it was Mozart Piano Concerto 20, number 23. That was just my alarm call, and she didn't try hard for me to be a musician. She just gave me a total free time, total like freedom to just do whatever I want to do, and all she did was just what she loved to do, just listening to music, just sing in the house, and just watch a lot of concerts. We went to a lot of concerts besides the ones that I performed. But it was just total freedom that when I was growing up, I sometimes wonder, like, do you want me to be anything? Because you don't try really to be like, pushy or like anything. Because all my friends' parents were just like, told them what to do, but my parents were just completely like free. So I think that was really big thing that I just grew up with a freedom, but just naturally surrounded with music all the time.
Yeah. So that's amazing because I think the way in which you breathe in the Putz Concerto, the way you take time, timing is space. We think constantly about the notes. We're always thinking about the notes, but oftentimes we forget the space between the notes is equally important. And the way you wait, the timing that you have, and I'm not talking about rhythm. I'm talking about emotional, expressive timing. Is just it really resonates with me when I hear it. I'm like,
Mhm.
that's exactly how I would play that.
Oh,
That's the amount of time I would wait. That's that. Oh, you just hold that, and then So it,
yeah,
it worked.
definitely. That's I think that the timing is just very very important to play any music.
Yeah.
It's like you said, Keith. It's the same thing how we could easily think that the notes are the most important thing,
Right.
but we never really think what's between the notes. So the silence, the magic that silence makes is just tremendous. Like I think those things are what making the magical moments. So I think a lot of times, a lot of musicians will be afraid to take time when they play music, but I think that's the one of the greatest key point, that we just have to take our time and be patient with throughout playing music.
Right. Right. Exactly. And that's the romantic side of it, the patience and the timing and the pacing of things. And
Definitely.
I think we don't think about that. And your parents were so right. You need to know how to breathe on marimba. So let's learn violin. Kudos to your parents.
Thank you. I'll tell my parents.
So I think we have one more clip of the Putz Concerto. So let's hear that now. I'm not sure which one this is, but we'll know after we hear it, and you can tell us a little bit about it. Awesome. I love this concerto.
Right?
It's fantastic. So tell us about that. Which movement was that, and how do you deal with that compared to some of the more romantic things that we've been talking about?
Yeah. So this was the last movement of Putz Concerto, the third movement.
Yep.
It's very, very different from the previous two movements. It's throughout the piece is very romantic and somewhat very lyrical and just really beautiful melody. And the third movement, it just kicks off as rhythm. So now that we're talking about, okay, how can be a great percussionist play marimba, right? Because people think that oftentimes they don't go together. But this is the moment where Kevin thought that, okay, this is the moment that you can show that how precise rhythm you can make on the marimba. And this is, I mean, I love this movement because I can be a completely different person when I play this last movement. I don't have to worry about, like making pretty melody and all that stuff, which I love to do anyways. But this time I'm just nailing the rhythms down and just be very precise with the orchestra. And one of the challenging part, actually, it's the hardest movement in the piece. But one of the challenging parts is that the rhythm goes differently from your part and the orchestra part. So your rhythm is, let's say, you're always 5/8 or 3/4, always changing, or 2/16 or something like that. It's always constantly changing, but it's actually not going with the orchestra. So you're actually playing hemiola against each other. And that is always the hardest part, to just lock in 2 days to play the concertos. But that's also one of the most exciting part, to meet up and then just do it in 2 days, because it's so much exciting. It's so much more exciting than just playing this steady rhythm. It's just the relationship again with the orchestra and your soloist is just rubbing each other all the time, which is making the most strong connection. Yeah. So you just have to be glued to the conductor, obviously, and just all of the orchestra member while you're playing, because you cannot lose them, because you're constantly rolling. They're constantly rolling in a different time.
That's so your time signature, just to clarify for everyone out there, your time signature is different than the orchestra's. And so you're riding across, and I assume there's points when that lines up. Is that correct?
Yes, absolutely. It lines up, but the pattern is different. So the pattern, so let's say like 2-3. If I play 2-3, then they're playing 4-1 or something like that, so that it doesn't lock really until the point, and then you just completely meets up when it's the point.
That's a little scary. And you mentioned 2 days, so I just want to clarify for everyone. So you get to a place and you you have just a couple days to put these things together. Is that right?
Yes. If I'm lucky, I have 2 days. If I'm lucky, I showed up and we do the first rehearsal, and then next day we do the dress rehearsal, and then the next day is the concert. If I'm not lucky, let's say that the concert is having a lot of programs, and then I'm running late with my schedules, then obviously I will have one rehearsal and the concert. So I did that for some concerts, but it was not that scary. I think because we just like got so excited to just meet up in the first place, and the conductor was like, "Okay, is that okay? We just play the concert."
Yeah.
And I was like, "Okay, sure, that's fine."
That's, we forget about that. I mean, I know this, but it's interesting for some of the students who have aspirations to be a soloist and so on to understand that the rehearsal time is very limited. And like you said, there's other pieces on the program that we only can allow this amount of time for the soloist.
Definitely. I mean, sometimes you just don't have time to be there for 3 days,
Yeah.
and you just have to go. Luckily, not on the day of the concert, but like day before the concert, and then you just meet up and play, and you both agree that this sounds great. This sounds very good to be just going off to the concert, and then you do the concert, and then that's it. But I mean, I was so lucky all the time because I was meeting, the greatest conductors and the greatest or one of the great orchestras. So I did not worry about being scared and fears and all that stuff. But generally the concertos not giving you 4 or 5 rehearsals.
Right. And like you said, you're dealing with your schedule too. You're coming from something else. You're coming from teaching. So tell me about some of the other pieces that you play. We've talked about the Kevin Putz, which clearly is, a great, a wonderful piece, and probably I would imagine one of your favorites. But what are some of the other ones that you play? And
Yes. So I play the Emmanuel Séjourné's Marimba concerto a lot. That's very, again, romantic piece that I just melts my heart down all the time when I play. And I can just connect with people really, really deeply. And even though it's so funny because you never met anyone in the concert audience, people, but you just feel so connected. Immediately you play the concerto, and then you feel them, they feel you. We're sharing one of the biggest moments together during the whole 20 minutes.
Yeah. In fact, I think one of the movements is called Romantica, or he has a piece Romantica. Am I correct about that? I think he has a piece called Romantica, and
Yes.
yeah, the Séjourné is just a gorgeous. A gorgeous piece. So we're going to hear a little bit of that in a second. But before we do, I mean, I just want to some of the other things that you do. You're doing some teaching now, and tell us a little bit about that. What else are you doing besides traveling in the world to to play?
Yes, I teach at the Peabody Conservatory right now, starting from 2019. So I love teaching in general, but these students are just very great. They are very dedicated, hard workers. Because my one of the life motivation is just work hard and play hard. Maybe play harder. but these students are just very, very great. They're inspiring me every day when I meet them and teach them. So I currently am under the faculty member at the Peabody Conservatory.
Yeah. So are you enjoying the teaching? Because it's new to you, right?
Yes. I just love sharing. I just love okay, I see that what I can help to make it better. And then when you see the result that it's just 5-10 times better than what it was, then I'm just like having this biggest joy. So I find that I just really enjoy teaching as well. Luckily, I have this beautiful teaching job with beautiful kids, but I just love sharing the idea of, just bring it out and then it's not just helping them, but just really more like sharing your musical thoughts. This is how I would do. And then the thing is, I went through all these stuff, what the students are doing right now. It's not like I came from different planets. So I understand exactly where they're at, and then to help faster in a more efficient way. If I can be of a help, then I just find that this is so much fun. I mean, I'm sure that you feel the same thing, Kith, that you have really joy to do what you do, and you're doing a wonderful job, by the way. But I think I find really big joy.
Yeah, I find teaching to be the tremendous joy, and I also find myself learning things that I never would have thought of. They do something, and I'm like, wait a minute, how did you do that? That I've not seen that before. And they're like, I don't know, I kind of made it up. And it's kind of, I often find that I learn things from my students.
Definitely.
So you said one more thing before we go, because I know you just as this percussionist, marimba player. Tell me, you said I play hard. What are some of the fun things you enjoy doing outside of music, or is there anything?
Well, being a musician is, I think, not really a different thing as being a human, right?
Yeah.
So I like to expose myself to very different types of music. And I, of course, grew up with classical music the whole time on my early life. But I slowly was able to expose to some of jazz music and some of pop music. But I'm talking about, it's like kind of old pops, like Beatles and, like Queens and all those great musicians. I love listening to those different types of music all the time. And what I mean by like playing harder is of course you just have to expose yourself to in a different world every once in a while, so that you can experience and then use it as your soil to be a great musician and to be able to play different styles of music.
Right. So experiencing something other than sort of the classical music. But music is still your hobby.
I'm a little bit nerdy about that, but I find that listening to music and just discovering new music every day, just like it's making me go crazy. We have now Spotify. You can just like put on shuffle on some category, and then you find some pieces that you never had experienced before. And then I'm just like, oh gosh, when did it come out? How come did I miss that? I should definitely listen more. And then I love playing on the instrument too. I love just like, when I'm taking a break, I love bring those pieces into my marimba and then just play around, especially during this pandemic season.
Yeah.
It's not like you have hundreds of concerts right now, right? So this is the luxury time for me to just experience different things,
Yeah.
and just really expose yourself to a different world.
Yeah, it's a different time. So we have the Séjourné excerpt, and then we'll come back, chat about that just a little bit, and then we'll be saying goodbye. So here is Emmanuel's Séjourné. Awesome. Oh man, I love that piece. Absolutely love that piece, and love you playing that piece.
Thank you.
So before we go, I mean, it's a tough time to ask this question because of everything that's going on. But what are some of the things coming up that are on the books, or how are you handling that?
Yeah, I think that this is a great time for preparing things that you couldn't when it was a normal time. So I'm currently working on with few composers to write me a piece. So I have a few solo marimba pieces working on right now, and as well as there's a concerto that I'm working on with this greatest composers in our colleague in our peer right now. But we're working on it very hard, and we hope to bring it out when the world is ready, and everything very soon. But that's the big part that what I've been working on every day today these days. It's just because I think you can take an advantage of doing things that you couldn't have done. So right now our process is actually much faster because it's not like me taking 2-3 days to respond to email. We're just like constantly talking and just sending email to each other and just making communication much easier. So this time it's actually much better in terms of that project's going. But there's that project, and I am working on some releasing album for marimba solo music. So we don't know. Yeah, I can't tell yet which pieces are gonna be on, but yeah, these are things that what I've been working on these days.
Oh, that's great. Well, I can't wait to hear the album, and I'm excited about some of the new compositions you have coming when the world is ready for us to go back to concerts. But so what a pleasure. And like I said, you and I have never met Just online communicating and inviting you to do some things with Vic Firth and with some schools because of my admiration for your playing and all the great, wonderful things that I see online. And we were supposed to meet this summer, but we unfortunately didn't. But it will happen in person soon.
Right. Well, thank you so much, Kith and Vic Firth and Jillian today to make this whole happen. I'm very grateful that we could share something today with people in the world, especially for students who needed education during the summer. But unfortunately, there is no any really summer things happening anymore. So I hope that this was a help.
Yeah, something for students to watch and enjoy and to learn about and hear you play. And I urge everyone to go on and online and check out some of Ji Su's amazing recordings. So listen, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we'll see you next time in person, I hope.
Absolutely. Looking forward.
Thanks a lot.